What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the farm. Sugar season is right around the corner, so the big push right now is making sure that I have all of my ducks in a row, that as soon as that sap starts running, that I am ready. Because once the sap starts running, it is non-stop full go for usually, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, a couple of months. There's not much time to be worrying about having to deal with problems of not being set up and ready to go once the season gets going. So if you were following the channel at this time last year, you might remember that back here in the sugar barn, none of this was here. This was all just one big clear span building. There wasn't the second floor in yet. The concrete floor wasn't in. The boiler was just sitting on a pallet on some gravel. None of the cabinets, none of this was in. So last year didn't have to really worry about steam and everything. So as you can see here, we are working on some ideas on building a vent hood. That video will be coming soon. But the big focus of today is now that the boiler is set in permanent place, we got to go ahead and get it fire bricked in, so we will keep there'll be as much heat retention as possible, and our boil will be as efficient as possible. Now, we were able to get our double wall chimney pipe installed. It goes up through the second floor here and then goes out the ceiling up above. So that's all done. So now the boiler is in permanent place. Last year, we did have some fire brick in it, so we definitely had pretty good heat retention, but we didn't cut any of it to make sure so it was a completely tight fit everywhere. We just laid them in whole as best we could all the way around. There was still some gaps. I don't know, maybe we had 85% coverage inside all of the walls and the flat surfaces last year. But this year, now that we're permanently in place, not going to have to move this thing, hopefully ever, definitely not anytime soon, but hopefully ever, we're going to get everything in nice and tight and bricked on every surface that we can get it bricked. So we got our fire bricks here. These are 2 by 4 by 8. This is what we'll be using for the most part. We also have some of the bricks left for last year. Whoop, there goes the gimbal. Some of the bricks left from last year that we'll be using also. These are 1 by 4 by 8, so they're half the size. We'll be using some of those as well. And then we'll be using some refractory cement to get everything mortared together. You can see this is good for up to 3,000 degrees. So you can see here, you can see the outline still from where the bricks were laid last year. Like here, we just laid them up, so there was this gap here. We will get them cut and get them pieced in here. On the edge here, you can see that there was about 1 inch on the edge here, that it didn't quite come all the way to the edge with the whole pieces. So we are going to get this thing bricked in tight this year. Now, before we get to mortaring and getting everything set in place permanent, we have manipulated this several different directions to try to figure out which orientation and everything is going to give us the tightest fit and the least amount of cutting. So we think we have that figured out now. Dad also had this good idea. We put some painter's tape along the edge here because there's some fiberglass. I don't know what you call it. It looks like it looks like gauze, but it's made of fiberglass that sits on that edge right there that gives you the seal under the pan so you don't get smoke infiltration out. But of course, it is all dirty, so he came up with that idea to put that on there to keep it off of our shirts as we're leaning in here. But we've got our orientation figured out now, so now we can start doing our cuts and getting everything mortared together. So behind the brick, so between the brick and the metal sides of the boiler, we are also going to use a layer of mineral wool. Mineral wool is good to about 3,000 degrees. And from what I've read, about the hottest that you can get a campfire is 2,000 to 2,100 degrees for a wood fire. So this should be plenty. There's plenty of room in there that this definitely will not be flammable or anything. Won't have to worry about that. So this will help insulate, and the brick is what will help hold the heat. In the flat part of the pan, we're also going to use some vermiculite. And this is all stuff that we've found from doing research online and from like manufacturers suggested videos and everything. Every manufacturer sort of did it a different way, so we are going to kind of throw together some ideas from several different manufacturers of these syrup boilers, and hopefully the combination of all of these will give us the best insulative value and heat retention. Now, with both what we read and what we saw, you do not have to put on very much. It's a real thin layer, and I by no means am a bricklayer, so we'll see how this goes. You can see we got our first 6 of them, well 8 of them here, mortared in. Now at the top here, we are going to go back down to the half thickness bricks because we don't want to take away any surface area from underneath our pan. So we want to recess back in here because we don't want the brick stealing any of the fire that's licking at the bottom of our boiling pans, of our big trays. So at the top, like I said, we are going to graduate back down to the half size, 1, 2, and then I'm going to cut one here. We're going to pull out masonry saw, and we'll get a couple of these cut down to size, and we'll just keep working our way around. So Dad brought over his tile saw, and of course the pump is not working on it. But we don't have that many cuts to make, so we're not going to let that stop us. We are going ahead and soaking the brick a little bit to try to keep the dust down and to try to keep the blade cool. But we're just going to go ahead and we'll put on some dust masks and we'll be real careful. And we'll get these cut. Like I said, we don't have that many to do, so it'll just be a little bit messier than it would have been had the pump been working. Perfect cut. So I explained this a minute ago, but here you can actually see it. We went to the thinner brick, so when our tray is sitting here, you know, there's over an entire inch that would have been blocking the edge of our tray. And now we're going to take some of the mineral wool and we are going to pack it in tight. And there's a little bit of a gap at the top, and we had to be able to get the brick in, so we left a little bit of a gap. But now we're going to pack that in at the top to make sure that we are insulated every little square inch that we can. So we are pretty well bricked in all the way around both sides, front and back here inside the firebox. We used some of that mineral wool and we shoved it in all of these edges up here all the way around the rim and got it packed as tight as possible to make sure that the brick is going to stay nice and I guess flat and flush while the refractory cement is setting up. And now what we're doing is we are going to dump some vermiculite, and we're going to use vermiculite in the flat portion here. We'll pour in the vermiculite, we'll get it nice and level, and then we're going to lay brick on top of that. So we're going to use the vermiculite instead of the mineral wool like we did in the firebox. The vermiculite will be our insulation up there, heading up and out, other direction, up and out towards the chimney. So it's slowed down a little bit because we're starting to have to cut a lot more pieces back here. We had to piece in a little row here to support the front of these bricks as they're flat going up out the flue, and we got one little cut, you know, on every side, every last brick going up this way. We're going to have to make a cut. You probably can hear the saw running in the background. But we're just working our way up, slow but sure. Guys, we're pretty well bricked in all the way around. We've gone about as far as, well, we have gone as far as we're going to go with all of this. Kind of ran out of bricks, but there's a few places. Come on, camera, work with me. Sorry about that. There's a few places up in there that we didn't piece in the little ones, but I don't think that that's going to affect efficiency too much. But we're all the way back to the flue, back in there where it heads up and goes out the chimney. We're completely bricked in solid in the entire firebox. And then also, I was able to get some brick in down here below the firebox, because lots of ash and coals and stuff do fall through the grates in here. And so that will help to preserve some heat and better insulate even down here underneath the firebox. It's been a couple of days since we got all of the bricks all mortared in with the refractory cement. And so tonight I am going to go ahead, now that everything is nice and cured, I'm going to go ahead and have a small little fire out here in the boiler. One, just to go ahead and make sure that that cement is all the way cured up. And two, to go ahead and check for any leaks in any of the seams on all the segments. I think it was 6 pieces of chimney pipe I had to use to get up through the second floor and then up through the ceiling. So going to kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone, maybe even a 3rd bird. Going to kind of get the pan sanitized, because syrup season's right around the corner, guys. I'm getting real excited. So the goal for this burn isn't really to have like a ripping hot fire. I just wanted to generate some smoke. I wanted to make sure that some heat did get in there, and make sure that that refractory cement really is nice and hardened up. But mostly this was just to let some smoke get through the system, test out the chimney pipe, because I don't want to get too much steam going in here, because we do not have the vent hood in yet. We still just have the one that we mocked up out of, looks like an old political sign, actually. We made it out of an old political sign. And but there will be a video coming out soon about the vent hood. So keep an eye out for that, because that's going to be a pretty cool one. But guys, I think that's going to do it for this video about getting the syrup boiler, getting the syrup arch all bricked in permanently. It's all set in place now. There were a lot of good resources out there about how to do this that I was able to leverage before we went and did it. I think I made mention of it at the beginning of the video. You know, there were a lot of different people that did it a lot of different ways, using, some people just used the vermiculite, some people just used the mineral wool, along with the fire brick, of course. We kind of did some of both, just what seemed like it was going to be easiest for the boiler that we have. Since we don't really have a name brand one, it's kind of hard to go and look for like factory recommendations and stuff, because they don't exist. So we kind of just put them together ourselves. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, think about hitting that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already. I would really appreciate it. And if you already are subscribed, I really appreciate you. And until next time, y'all, we'll see you.